we've got the biggest offseason in franchise history today, as this is really our last opportunity before we've started to trade away some of our picks to actually build a team that can start to win. And we have got a couple of really good picks in a really awesome draft, and so it's time to make the most of it. Here is every single asset that I consider tradable here from this team. It all fits in this one column. We have the 5th pick, the 7th pick. We have 2 unprotected picks. They are, however, 4 drafts into the future, so they are being heavily devalued by 2K, which is unfortunate because both of these teams that we're seeing here are picking in the top 6 in this draft, so they could be, I think maybe at least should be a little bit higher valued. Jalen Johnson and Zaire Williams are also on this list. These are 2 players that I think underperformed last year. These are all the picks that we can trade. Those 2 picks that we have left, we cannot trade. And Andre Stevens, Christian Davidson, and Moses Moody are the other guys under contract. Not going to trade Stevens or Davidson. Maybe we could trade Moody if that's really the difference of getting what we want in this class. I'd be willing to, but I'd prefer to keep Moody on hand if we can. So these are the assets that I'm willing to trade up. And I have decided that I am going to try to trade up to the number 2 pick in the draft. Now, Miami technically couldn't trade this pick until draft night itself. So this will be a little bit of a wink, wink, nod, nod agreement until draft night because of the stepping in rule. You can still trade your picks after they've been selected. You just can't trade your pick in advance. So we are going to approach the Heat and talk about a deal for the number 2 pick in the class. And this would, of course, get us a guaranteed slot at one of the 2 point guards that I love so much in this class. It is a 4-star valued pick, so it's going to take quite a lot. And I am determined to get this done, though, but I do not want to trade both 5 and 7. I'm equally determined to keep 2 lottery picks in this class at a minimum, as I am to trade up to number 2. As you can see here, the forward situation for the Heat is quite bad, which is a boon for us because they are going to like Zaire and Jalen Johnson. They're going to each be, the best players at their respective positions. And so I think even though Jalen Johnson's rating went down by half a star, I think he'd still be valued to them. Our first offer that I don't think is going to be enough, but I want to at least try, is going to be Zaire and one of those unprotected firsts. It is not enough to get the job done. Not super surprising, but I'd like to keep some assets so that this wouldn't be the only move we could make. Jalen Johnson is worth 2.5 stars to some other teams, and so maybe we can pull this off. We cannot. The Heat know the value of this number 2 overall pick, and they are not giving it up easily here. 2 unprotected picks. They're just so far in the future. If this was maybe even 1 year closer, if those were both 2028 picks, I feel like that would get this trade done. But they're both only 1.5 stars, which is just unfortunate because they are at least how the teams are looking now. And the reason they're devalued is because the teams could look very different in 4 years, but and you don't get the asset for 4 years. Giving up Zaire and Jalen Johnson, I feel like that's pretty rough for me being able to maybe pull off another trade to get back into maybe the teens of this draft to get one of the forwards that I like that we previewed last episode. Both players, we can maybe keep one of the unprotected future picks. This is a lot. I'm going to try to finesse a little bit. Maybe I would do this for 7 and the 2 players on the pick. They really need these forwards. Still don't know if this is enough, though. This is rough. Trading up to number 2. We're giving up pretty much all of our good assets. Would you throw back a second? I don't even know if they do this without this second, if I'm being honest, but I'd love to. I'm giving up the 2 players that are worth trading. And we have a deal with the Miami Heat. We were able to keep the 5th pick as well. Miami desperately needed some forward players, and they have, Bam Adebayo, and they have Damian Lillard. And so gonna turn the stepping rule back on quickly here. That was enough to get the trade done, and we have now 2 top 5 picks in the draft, something that I was hoping we could get prior to the lottery. We got screwed, but we ended up getting number 2. So we're going to add a point guard into the rotation, and we still have another top 5 pick that we can add. Guys like Kelvin Fletcher, Francis Mullins. I think there are plenty of players that are going to be worth that 5th pick. And now we can maybe even trade down a little bit should the guys that I really like at the number 5 spot not be there. But I'll reveal what my official top 10 big board is. I made the top 10 in order, and I'm going to show it to you once we actually hit the draft. So we now have 2, 5, and 18. Taking a look now at what I would consider our tradable assets now. Really, I think if we could package the 2029 Atlanta first and a Brooklyn 2026 second, I think that would be good. We could technically trade 5 and try to get the number 1 and the number 2. I know there's been some push for doing that, but I mean, we offered much more than that to move from 5 to 2, so it's definitely not going to be enough to move from 5 to 1, unfortunately. With the lottery luck, we just don't have the ammo. I don't even think if we added Moses Moody, it would be enough either. And I'm not trading Andre Stevens or Christian Davidson for the opportunity to get both Harvey and Pope. I think Philly's just going to end up with one of them, and we're going to end up with the other, is how this draft is going to go, unless, of course, Philly surprises. But I just don't think they will. If Philly does surprise and they don't take either of the point guards, I'll trade from 5 to 3. See what it would take to do that. But again, I just don't think Philly is going to pass on one of those guards. So very likely we're picking at 2 and 5 here. And then if the draft goes our way and somebody falls, we could package these last 2 assets we have to move back up and get a 3rd player. Wanted at least 2. Was kind of hoping for 3 before the lottery. I don't know if 3 is possible anymore, at least for one of the players that I want, but it's still not out of the question. Very stoked to have pulled off this trade with Miami. But certainly let me know what you think of that trade. As we see now, Sidney Lowry's going to get a bit of a year 3 makeover for him. This is what he's looked like through his first 2 seasons. Going to change things up a bit. There were maybe some rumors of some suspicious activity happening in the offseason, but those rumors could not be substantiated, and he'll be ready to go come the start of next year. And very excited, especially now that we have 2 top 5 picks. I think I was prepared for it to maybe be even a little bit harder than that. I thought I might have to give up both 5 and 7 and then use some of those other assets like Zaire and Jalen Johnson to move up back into the lottery after that, just package something to somebody. But it turns out the Heat were the perfect trade partner because they really needed those forwards. This tattoo, by the way, just appeared out of nowhere once I changed his hair. He just all of a sudden had a tattoo on his leg. But it's going to look a little bit more mature, like he's been in the league for a while now with the facial hair, with a little bit update to the hair. Putting some bolts on there. Also got the new leg tat. So Lowry going to be looking a little bit different for season 4. Regardless, super stoked. I know I am, but of course I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. in the comments section, and we can debate maybe whether it was worth the trade up or not, because we are in a situation now where our future, there's not a lot of flexibility. We don't have a lot of picks to trade, don't have a lot of players either. We've kind of already made our moves for the most part. And with that, we are now ready to start to get into the offseason itself, starting here with the staff signing, excuse me. We got a new CFO, Ryan Tucker, got some gold badges on him, so excited for that. I feel like we got ourselves some really good staff members this time around. One big thing to note is I was considering letting go of Oliver Gordon. There were a lot of good coaches available in this cycle, and I thought it could be a time with us having some pressure to win next year to improve, especially because despite having a 4.5 star potential, I don't think anything of his has gone up. Does potential just not work in 2K? Do I just not know how it works? If somebody could give me some insight on that who does know, I would be grateful for sure. But yeah, one of the main reasons we signed him to a 4-year contract in year 1 is because of that potential, and I thought he could grow as our team grows, but he's been sitting here at 2.5 and 3 stars for everything for all seasons. But anyway, we're going to let him play out his contract, and the main reason I decided that is because there are a lot of really good coaching candidates next season, and we were able to get a pretty good coach here in JB Bickerstaff that I think if everything goes wrong next year, we can promote him. Of course, has some head coaching experience in the league, but really excited to have him just on the staff in general. A very experienced coach to add to a very full lineup here. We have a 4-star coaching staff now, which is the highest it's ever been. We really need it because, again, I've said it plenty of times, we are starting to feel the pressure to win a little bit here in Nashville. Scouting department, going to be looking pretty bleak because we don't have a lot of picks coming up after this year. And I already have a pretty good idea of what I want in this class. Stephen Harrington is the new team doctor. I think I had him in the Las Vegas Outlaws too. I think I gifted myself him in the Outlaws franchise, but instead we're actually just hiring him the non-cheating way here in this series. I think he comes from the Suns, so really excited about our staff. I think it's the best it's been in this series yet. So excited to have a lot of these guys on long-term deals. Of course, the big thing here now is that Oliver Gordon is on his final year, and whether or not we bring him back, I mean, I'm still not opposed to bringing him back if the team actually experiences some success. I think at the very least, I want to be a play-in team. Whether that's a realistic expectation or not, I guess we'll have to see after the draft. But I think like guys like Steve Kerr on an expiring, Eric Spoelstra's on an expiring, Darvin Ham is on an expiring. He'd be a good get. Monty Williams as well. There's just a lot of guys. I think Ime Udoka's in that conversation as well. There are a lot of guys that I think could be upgrades, and so I'm putting a little bit of pressure on Oliver Gordon. We got to at least be in the play-in for us to even consider re-signing him. If we end up having like a decent little playoff berth and maybe at least a competitive series or maybe even a second round berth, then yeah, I'll bring him back because that would be sick. But yeah, putting a little bit of pressure on Oliver Gordon if he wants to remain the head coach. Taking a look here now at the combine, at some of the best performers in these drills. Bruce Irving, the fastest player in the sprints. We do not have him fully scouted at all. Looking at his skill set, he's a good playmaker and a good athlete, as you would expect with him having the fastest sprint time. Could definitely look at him in terms of one of our final, workouts. Kenny Hughes, another point guard here. We do have him at 100% already. Solid potential, athleticism, good mid-range score, solid playmaker. Has one badge. Doesn't have the best ceiling despite the B+ potential. Jamal Murray would be a good player to get. And then Joshua Berry Carroll, very familiar with him. And then Benjamin Higgins with 2 badges. He has Hall of Fame ceiling. Interesting. Looking at the grades, B+ potential, so we might have a really big boom ceiling, but a lower regular potential. But definitely worth keeping an eye out. We do already have him at 100% scouted, but can certainly add him on the board, I think, pretty comfortably. Let's go now to agility. We have Chip Weaver. He's got 5 badges. A playmaker for sure. That is his skill set. Cannot defend at all. Athleticism is going to be good. Low ceiling? Although he does have that all-star ceiling, so I think he could be a solid point guard option a little bit later in the class. He does have 3 weaknesses though. No oomph around the rim, no medium range, and finisher. A couple that are related to his finishing, so not a finisher at all. But a good playmaker with 5 badges off rip is intriguing. Already seen Hughes and Irving. Vert, Glenn Carter. Slashing threat. Got that E- potential. Slithering. Although his ceiling is Daryl Griffith. Can't shoot, but he can surely jump. And then a center here. The 44-inch vert at 270 pounds. My goodness, my dude. Only a starter here. Play some post defense. Obviously, A+ athlete for sure. Worth a pick in the 2nd round at the very least. Sick player. Kelvin Fletcher, we know, one of the top players in this class. Sick vert. Seen Higgins before. Has that Kobe Bryant ceiling, which is insane. And Leroy Rogers here. Another guy we don't have perfectly scouted. I think we can spend one of our pre-draft workouts on him. Bench. Peters again. I mean, what a flippin' athlete. Jay-Sean Mayo tied him at the lead. Very much so a defensive inside center. 2 badges is nice with some all-star upside. You like to see that as well. Pretty solid looking center here. And then Francis Mullins we're very familiar with. Theo Edwards out here at power forward. Hitting a lot of these shots. Good score. C overall. Only have him scouted at 9%. Maybe we can boost that with one of our last pre-draft slots. Samson. Already have him at 100%. He's 73 overall with B+ potential. Good athlete. Good inside scoring. 1 badge. Starter ceiling. Jose Hernandez we're very familiar with. Mid-ranger Sean Sampson again, as well as Bobby Hickman, another guy we're very familiar with in this class. Like him a lot. Jermaine Bell, another guy we're very familiar with. College 3 Warren Dixon here. Only scouted him at 11%. Probably want to raise that quite a bit. A+ mid-range scoring, B- from 3 with some post defense too. I think he's worth a 2nd round pick at power forward. And of course, we acquired that 2nd round pick in that trade with the Heat, so he could be somebody that's there. Lynn Park, some crazy hair here. Good offensive player, terrible defensive player. Carl Cooper Dyke with the hair. Good size for point guard, another guy who's all offense, but good positional size. I like this player quite a bit. This point guard class is nuts, man. I'll just tell you that right now. All NBA upside, my goodness. I mean, he's going to start at the 70 overall, which is a little rough, but this is a good point guard prospect. This point guard class is literally insane. A lot of guys we've already talked about. Let's talk about Brad Kemp here. 6'9". Wing. Cannot play a lick of defense, though. That's pretty tough. If you can't play defense at all, it's going to be tough for you to be somebody I'm interested in. I like my two-way players. Dante Wright, by a long shot, led this. Another point guard. No surprise, dude. The point guards in this class are insane. I kid you not when I say I've never in 2K seen a point guard class as good as this one. Never, ever. 4 badges as well. All NBA upside. What is up with this nutty class? Cooper Dyke shows up again. Dante Wright, Kelvin Fletcher this time. Sebastian Rice, somebody we really like. Another guy, all NBA upside. That Wells guy is showing up again. Or is this the same guy? Oh, this isn't the same guy we just talked about. A athlete. Solid. I don't think there's anything here that you love though, but he's solid. He's a really good athlete. Let's have some good positional size as well. 6'8", 231 NBA body. Could be worth, finishing that profile for sure. And that's pretty much it. The top performers at each of these drills at the combine. Gonna get these pre-draft workouts done, and then we will get to the NBA draft, the biggest draft yet of this franchise. And it's now officially time to get into the NBA draft. We have been previewing this draft for quite some time now, getting excited for it. Philadelphia is first on the clock, and they do not go off of the board. They do exactly as they were expected, and they take Damian Harvey, 6'8" point guard out of the University of North Carolina. We've talked about him a lot. He's really close to the perfect prospect, and certainly somebody that would have helped out our team a lot, but instead he's going to go pair up with Joel Embiid and maybe try to win him something in the twilight of his career. Philadelphia's had some success in this series, and now they're looking to bring the success to the next generation. Right now I'm going to put over probably on the other bottom corner of the screen. I ended up making a top 10 big board. I just wanted to know, just in case, maybe, Philadelphia decided they wanted to get Francis Mullins to replace Joel Embiid or something. If somehow we had the opportunity to take either Harvey or Pope, who would I take? And I ultimately had Malachi Pope as first on my board. And just because I have Pope first does not mean I think Harvey's the bad pick at second at all. I totally understand why he is the consensus #1 overall player. A little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic than Pope. It's just kind of the badges and the higher dish to open man tendency is ultimately what had me put Pope at 1. So I'm obviously happy that he's available at 2, but I would have honestly been really happy had Harvey been there either. I think both are absolute locked in future superstars of this league. Harvey projects to be year 1 an elite interior scorer as well as an elite defender. I think his jump shot isn't 100% developed yet, but it's going to be solid, I think, to start year 1, and then it's going to be really good over time. Certainly not something that's going to be a problem for him. Really good handle. Is a very capable passer, just doesn't always choose to pass. He's definitely a score first guard, but he can be that really high usage player for you. And that brings us up here at number 2. And I wish there was a little more, drama with this pick as to who we would select, but there is not. Malachi Pope is the obvious choice for me here at the number 2 overall selection. Again, as I just stated, ended up being my #1 player in the draft, a 6'6", 220-pound point guard. He can score all 3 levels. Doesn't love to go inside, I will say. He likes to do a lot of his scoring from his jump shooting, but he's a good jump shooter, so that's not necessarily a problem. Most of his inside shots actually tend to come off of cuts and stuff, not necessarily on drives. When he's driving, as you'll see here, he likes to pull up when he feels like he has the leverage to do so and can get an open shot there. But an elite passer at Duke, had just a ton of assists, a lot went to center Francis Mullins, who's also going to be going in the lottery in this class and pretty early in it, and led Duke all the way to the national championship. And that kind of winning culture that he was able to inspire there with his teammates as just a freshman is exactly what we want on this team. I think he's going to be a team leader, somebody that when Lowry's off the floor, he can absolutely be the number one option. And even when Lowry's on the floor but maybe struggling a little bit, we can go to this player. Just a slam dunk pick for me. And I thought we really needed a point guard in this franchise. 3.8 steals per game. Didn't even talk about his defense. He's a really, really good defender, especially with the steals. Kelvin Fletcher ends up going with the number 3 overall pick to the Clippers, who of course were the biggest riser in this lottery, had the number 9 odds, ended up at number 3. And Kelvin Fletcher, number 5 player on my board, but I don't think this is a reach here. I think he's the ultimate kind of 3-and-D right now, kind of like what they actually drafted last year with Irvin Edwards, where he was 3-and-D, but Irvin Edwards didn't have the upside, whereas Kelvin Fletcher does. He 3-and-D now, but I think can become a good ball handler and more of an on-ball scorer as his career progresses. Solid size for that 2 spot. Maybe pushes Irvin Edwards down a little bit on the future of the LA, but I think Fletcher is absolutely worth it. Jermaine Bell goes 4th to the Los Angeles Lakers. Jermaine Bell was the biggest riser in this entire draft process. Entered it as a probable 2nd round pick, but just his competitiveness, his tenacity on the boards, and when he defends inside is really what ultimately makes him a top 5 pick in this class. I think Bell is going to be a really awesome player for the Lakers. I think it might be a little early, though. You saw him ranked at, 8 or 9, I think, on my board. And once again, I wish there was a little bit more drama. I thought Francis Mullins, he was projected in the mocks to go number 4 to the Lakers. But as you see here, he's my number 3 player in the class, and I actually have him on the same tier as Malachi Pope and Damian Harvey. That being said, I think he's maybe a little bit worse, but not enough worse to put him on an entire tier below. And what puts him in there is that there's really nothing this guy can't do. Again, for a center, he can score at all 3 levels for sure. He can really rebound with kind of the rest of the bigs down there. He's not going to get out physicaled at all, despite the fact that he's maybe a little bit slender at just 230 pounds at 7 feet. You know, there are definitely guys that are going to have 20 pounds on him, but I don't think it's going to be a problem for him. He can finish through traffic. He can find shots like this in the mid-range or even from 3-point range. And really, what makes me love this player is he can also play make. You know, he's got high IQ, he can make good decisions with the ball, and has that Hakeem Olajuwon All-NBA upside with those 4 badges. And the duo from Duke is making its way to Nashville to play point guard and center for the next decade for us, hopefully. I think this draft is going excellently for us. Sebastian Rice, another one of my top 10 players. So far, everybody that's been taken has been inside my top 10. I am a little bit just wondering about kind of a mini slide here for Joshua Barry Carroll, who was the number 2 consensus player in the draft. But I really like Sebastian Rice. There were 4 power forwards that I thought were very similar in this class. I thought Sebastian was my favorite of them. Jermaine Bell ends up going ahead of him. Was projected to go maybe a little bit after the top 10, but still inside the lottery, that range of the draft. Ends up rising a bit here. And he's another guy that rose throughout the draft process. He was, in the beginning of the process, projected to go kind of borderline first round. Joshua Barry Carroll, that mini slide does end, and of course it's to the Heat, who just always seem to know how to draft, and this is a very, very good point guard. Just because, you know, he's the 3rd point guard coming off the board in this class. Don't let that make you think that he's not a really elite point guard prospect, because he is. Really only lacks a 3-point shot, but he defends, he play makes, has a little bit of a low dish to open man tendency, I will say that, but he also scores really well inside the arc. Brandon Law, next player off the board, goes to the Utah Jazz. He was just another one of these point guards that we're going to be seeing going all throughout the first round. And of these point guards, he is definitely one that just loves to put the ball in the basket, which honestly a lot of the guys in this class do at the point guard spot. We're going to see a lot of really good scorers come from the point guard position in this draft. Definitely the smallest guy, only 6'1", 170 pounds. But man, can he shoot. The best shooter in this class. Also has really good upside on top of that. And De'Aaron Fox is apparently a free agent, and so the Jazz will be getting their point guard of the future. We see a trade here. The Clippers are deciding to get another top 10 pick in this class, and they take Jose Hernandez. This is a pick that I really like. I had him as just outside the top 5 for me. Another point guard. We're going to be saying it a lot in the first round. Another point guard off the board. The best point guard class I have ever seen, and Jose Hernandez is just another in it. A guy who I think easily could have been a point guard 1 or a point guard 2 in many other classes. Ends up being the 5th guy off the board in this class. He's got those rocked up muscles that he has those tatted sleeves on. Very strong and athletic. Really good defender and passer as well. He can score, doesn't look for his shot aggressively, but I think he's a really good pick here for LA. Flying through these top 10. A lot of really good picks here, and it looks like the Jazz are trying to trade back up, and they take Russ Outlaw, the first pick here that is not accompanied by clips, as I don't have any of him, but I think Russ Outlaw is a solid upside pick for Utah. I didn't love what he offers in year 1, but maybe Utah doesn't really care about that. He does have the upside, and also excellent size at 6'10", 240 pounds. Harold Hart, goes to the Wizards. Another very high-end upside point guard in this class. Super athletic, can score on the inside, can create a bit as well. And that will be a solid pick. And once again, another point guard, Dante Wright. The Spurs, I think, have taken point guard in the first round in all 3 of our classes now. Dante Wright, good scorer for sure, a little bit undersized, but a good offensive point guard for sure. Going to San Antonio, they're trying to figure out that point guard spot. Lauri Markkanen is traded, and the Jazz get a 3rd lottery pick. What's going on? And they take another point guard in Joel Carson. I think this guy has 5 badges. Don't know a ton about him because he's a little undersized, and I just don't personally really value undersized point guards in 2K unless they're really, really elite at something. Isaac Marks, 6'7", small forward. As much as we've been talking about how great this point guard class is, I thought this might be the worst small forward class I've ever seen. And which means I don't know a ton about Isaac Marks, because I know I wasn't impressed with him, because there's only 2 in this class that I would even consider taking. Vanderbilt being traded here, and Steven Schultz, 6'7", 220-pound power forward. Another guy who is solid. There's a power forward on the board that I like better than him, though. And finally, we get the second to last player that I have clips on now going here. And Bobby Hickman, I think, is an excellent pick for Sacramento. If we ended up not being able to pull off a trade up, or if we needed to use 5 and Francis Mullins likely would have been off the board, Bobby Hickman as the center 2 in this class, I think, is excellent value. For my money, the best rebounder that we've seen come into the draft since the Nashville Sound have been a basketball franchise. And we've seen some good rebounders come out of the draft the last couple of years. And so the Kings really got themselves a nice big man. Has not been playing basketball very long, was a football player until his senior year of high school, when he had a growth spurt that just made him too big to play it. So he's a little bit raw, but I think has awesome upside. And the centers keep on going. This was my third favorite center in the class. Don't have clips on him, but he was the backup center behind Bobby Hickman. The centers go back to back. Stretch 5 with great defense. Kurt Watts going here to Phoenix. One of the more NBA ready guys, so I think Phoenix makes sense for him. One of the higher overall guys. Great offensive player, great size. Can't play a lick of defense. Rex Ryan, solid power forward here, and all these power forwards going over somebody that was in my top 10, Ernest Augustine, makes you wonder if we should trade up. And I'm starting to think that now is when I'm going to start offering the trade up here, because I'd be willing to trade these picks for somebody that I had in my top 10 in the draft. I don't want to give up Moody though for that. So they're looking to get off of AJ Kennedy, one of the many point guards they've selected. They took him last year. With having taken another point guard here, I think they're just looking to move off of him. What's the highest pick we could theoretically get in this draft? Somebody's offering us. These are awful. The 9th pick in the second round. I don't think he's going to be available. We could the 2nd pick in the second round. We'd be trading an unprotected first for it. This is the highest pick that was offered to us for the two really assets that we have that we can trade other than Moses Moody. Well, again, I'd prefer not to trade. They do end up making a trade as for Isaiah Joe and Steven Adams, looking more for players than picks, I guess. Bellamy, another point guard. Don't know as much about him, though. Jennings is a solid player. He's kind of rocked up. As you see, 220 pounds at 6'3", but just a little undersized for the 2-guard spot. But I think at 20, the only reason he wasn't on my board is because he was projected to go sooner. But he falls a bit. Glenn Carter to the Bucks. Dmitry Kursov to the Celtics. Is Ernest Augustine actually going to make it to that 34 pick? I would trade those picks for Ernest Augustine, and as much as it seems wild to do that for the 34th pick, I think I'd do it for Ernest Augustine. Devin Evans, really good offensive 2-guard in this class. 6-foot point guard going to... Ooh, I like this pick. Bryant Sharp, very intriguing guy. He can play defense a little bit. He can play offense a little bit, but mostly he's like a really good passer and IQ guy. Not a great shooter, but okay. Not a great defender, but okay. But the guy has great vision. Dante Lloyd goes at 32. Good shooter with good size. I think a good fit next to Luka. He does not play defense though, unfortunately, which you'd wish he would with that size. Casey Will's another guy here with some pretty good size, but I mean, the Warriors said they'd give us this pick for 34. I'll do it. And I know a lot of you might be looking at this. You're trading an unprotected pick for a second rounder. Yeah, that sounds ridiculous, but we're not trading an unprotected pick for a second rounder. We're trading an unprotected first round pick for Ernest Augustine. That's the plan here that we're doing. And so if we were trading this for a hypothetical pick, if you look at it as trading for the 34th pick, you're going to say this is a terrible trade. But if you look at it as, hey, we're getting a player who's top 10 on my board, who shows all NBA upside, you're trading a pick 4 years into the future when that guy's going to be developing all 4 of those years in our program. I think that trade looks a little bit. I feel like there are going to be some that don't like it, but I mean, Ernest Augustine, when we traded Jalen Johnson, we needed a backup power forward. If we didn't do this trade, we'd be starting a UDFA. And he has all NBA upside. He's 72 overall now. He's not terrible by any means. Definitely somebody that you want to be a backup. And one of the biggest fallers in this class is in the pre-draft process. He was a top 10 player. I don't know how he fell this far. I thought even when he was projected to fall to the 20s, that was too far, but he fell even further than that. Ernest Augustine, very happy to add him to the squad. We have given up pretty much every last bit of asset flexibility we have for the future by making this trade. But we still have, maybe things with Ernest Augustine won't work out. I'm sure he'll be worth something on the trade market if it's not, or a guy like Sam Hudson or whatever. But for right now, very, very happy to add Ernest Augustine and have him play that backup power forward spot. I like that option a lot better than what I thought we were going to have to do and play a UDFA there, or kind of the guy that we were going to get at round 2, pick 18. I mean, you could say Ernest Augustine could have lasted there. I just don't think he would have. Somebody was going to be smart and actually pick him. Here we see Damian Harvey. So in the pre-draft process, it was projected that Malachi Pope would be 80 overall and that Damian Harvey would be 79, but it ends up being flipped. Great perimeter defender, great playmaker, great interior scorer, elite athletes. Jump shot, good but not great, but will definitely develop, and then A- potential. And Malachi Pope, also A- potential. His potential was projected to be lower than this, and I just didn't see how. I didn't believe it. I thought everyone was lying, and turns out they were. Kelvin Fletcher, A 3-point scorer, B defense, B- playmaking, B mid-range scorer, a shooter, a defender with some playmaking upside, B+ potential. Solid pick there. 2 badges for the Clippers. Jermaine Bell ends up 72 overall, no badges. A- post defense and rebounding though. Can shoot the 3 a little, but not much. A- potential. That's a good thing to see there. Francis Mullins, 79 overall. We got both of them, dude. How do we get both of them? It looks like the consensus scouts were a lot more right about a lot of these guys scoring than our own personal scouts, which makes me worried about our scouting department. Another A- potential. I just can't stop smiling, dude. We got Malachi Pope and Francis Mullins. I was sitting here commentating the rest of the draft and made me forget for a moment about just how awesome of a draft we had. A- potential for Sebastian Rice. Again, his scoring was closer to what the consensus said and not what our personal scouts said. Joshua Barry Carroll fell a little bit too far, if you ask me, especially because his 3-point is actually better than projected. It was projected D+ and it's C. That's not horrible. We'll see if Miami can work on that low dish to open man tendency from him. B+ potential. 6 badges. Brandon Law, A+ 3-point shooter. Could score at all 3 levels. Really an offensive player. Not a great passer, A athlete with A potential. That's actually the highest we've seen here with Brandon Law. So Jazz going upside there. Jose Hernandez. Look at this point guard class. He's actually a 75 overall. Our scouts were way off on him. How did this guy get drafted below some of these guys? He's sick. B+ potential. I thought his grades looked a little bit too good for 72. And turns out that's what it was. Outlaw can defend on the inside and rebound a little bit. That's really all he is for now, but A potential. That Jazz have the 2 guys with A potential on this list. Harold Hart, 6'2". You can kind of mold them to be whatever you want. A potential. Really good athlete. Can jump out the gym. Probably gonna posterize some dudes in his time. 75 overall. Another great offensive point guard. Just can't play a lick of defense and is undersized. A- potential here from right. Joel Carson. Oh, that's not the guy with 5 badges. I thought it was. There's another guy who has like a very similar face then. Good mid-range scorer and playmaker. Brandon Law's better. I don't know why they took Carson. They should have traded up and gotten Bobby Hickman. Then the Jazz probably would have had the best draft class other than us in the league. I don't love that Carson pick. Schultz, E+ potential. 70 overall, not great. Especially like, are you taking him over Bobby Hickman, who's just a beast? I really like Bobby Hickman. I was kind of planning on him being our center because I thought even if we were going to trade up to 2, we were going to have 2 and 7, and that Mullins would be off the table. And I kind of wanted a center in this class with our second lottery pick, just because I thought both of these centers were really, really good prospects. A potential for Hickman. Of course, not as nearly as good of a starting point as Mullins, though. Is 74 compared to 79. Really good. Jay-Sean Mayo. 3-pointing is a little bit lower than expected, but his defense is actually a little bit better. B potential only, though. But I like him. I think he's a good player. Kurt Watts, 1 badge, 75 overall. Plays offense. Defends a little bit inside, I guess, so it's not bad there, but his IQ's trash. So you don't love that. But he can really score. All 3 levels. Rex Ryan is a 3-point sniper. B- potential is rough. Oof. Good defender here from Bellamy and playmaker. Not a great scorer though, but good IQ. B potential, solid pick. Jennings, pretty good player. Honestly, I would have been higher on him had I known he was actually going to last this long. He was just projected to be a top 10 pick, and I was like, a 6'3" 2 guard in the top 10. Don't love it. But at that point in the draft, absolutely. Getting to the point of the draft where we don't know a ton of players, so we'll probably start to go a little bit faster here until we get to our pick. Some B+ potentials here. Good scorer here with B potential. Mid-range player only with B potential. Not a great pick, if you ask me. Excellent 3-and-D player. Just a little bit undersized. Probably should have maybe got clips on him. He's a pretty good player, though. These undersized guys, man. B potential, like the B IQ, the B playmaking. Just a really fun pick with excellent size from Sharp. I don't know if he's ever going to be a great player, but he's a really fun pick for the Thunder. And Tonto Lloyd, just absolute sniper. A- potential. He was on our board. But we needed to be a trade down instead of a trade up situation to ever really get him. And now in the second round, as I go through these players after Ernest Augustine, of course, he ends up being really similar to what I thought, but he has A potential. How did this guy get to the second round? He had the All-NBA upside. How did this guy get to the second round? Now do you hate me trading the unprotected first-round pick for him? If you even did in the first place? Shoot. Okay. But now that we're going through the second round and a lot of these guys aren't going to be very good, just to talk about why I ended up trading up twice in this class. It looks pretty good because the players are pretty good, but even though it takes a lot of our future flexibility for our picks, I think the reason I was still willing to do it, this guy has A potential, but he's 69. Nice. But the reason I was willing to do it is because we don't have any future assets really now, we can trade some guys who don't work out for us. We could trade, the Patrick Baldwins and the Moses Moody's if they end up not working out for us at a time. We could trade Ernest Augustine if he doesn't develop well. Sam Hudson, Wilson Fisher. We could trade. There's a lot of different guys we could trade. I think actually we probably will trade a point guard next season because whoever doesn't win the point guard job between Hudson and Fisher probably isn't going to be happy not getting minutes. I imagine Hudson's going to improve a bit to the point where he's going to at least want minutes. But maybe not. Maybe he only goes up 2 overall and we can put him in the G League for another year. This Cooper Dyke guy ends up being an A potential. I liked him as an offensive player. And 6'4" at the point guard spot. Just, you know, once you take Malachi Pope, all the other point guards are kind of, you're just not thinking about them. This guy looks wild. But, so even though, you know, our future flexibility is at an all-time low coming out of this episode, that doesn't mean we can't improve it at some point. I like Dixon a bit, B- potential, but can play offense a bit. That's why I was willing to do it, you know. We're just a couple moves away. And if Ernest Augustine doesn't work out with that potential, I'm sure he could net us just as good of his pick as we used to get rid of him. This guy's pretty good. He's a good pick. Lambert. So, there you have it. We are through the draft now. Team options here and player options as well. Draymond Green does accept, so we're paying him a lot next year. I do think it's okay to let Shannon Stewart go with how the draft went. Sam Hudson, though, I want to bring back and see how he improves for sure. He's definitely going to be in the mix alongside Wilson Fisher to be backup point guard next season. And so, yeah, I'm going to give him a chance. I want to see how he develops in player progression. And now let's get into free agency. Going to first start with what happened around the league. Then we'll talk, what happened with us. And then we'll go to what happened around the league. We're getting ourselves 3 mentors this season. CJ McCollum to mentor Malachi Pope. Andre Drummond will mentor Mullins. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope will mentor second-year player Christian Davidson. We'd end up bringing Wilson Fisher back on a 2-year deal worth just north of $6 million per, and that would bring us to Patrick Baldwin. Wanted a lot of money, but it's only for 2 years, so I'm fine with it. Now on day 12 of free agency, the last day, let's see what's going on around the league. There are still a lot of guys who have not been signed. Curious to see if anybody gets any last minute offers here. Nothing beyond 1 year for guys like De'Aaron Fox is a little bit crazy. But going to the guys who have signed, Luka remains on the Mavs, Steph, the Warriors, Durant with the Suns, Irving to Sacramento, the biggest mover, coming from Miami. Jaden Ivey. So the Pistons over the last couple of years have been able to keep their big 4 together, which is pretty impressive. Magic retain Banchero. The Rockets keep Trae Young. So not a lot of movements. They also retain Jabari Smith. A lot of these guys are staying put here. Wagner to the Jazz is probably the second biggest move. We'll have to see. There's still, like I said, a lot of guys who have remained unsigned, but this is like much more than usual. Everybody's staying put. I'm used to more movement, and I like a lot of people staying put in the NBA. I wish some of these guys would get more than 1 year deals, but they still got one more day to get it. We'll see if any of them do. Now just going to look at the transaction report for the last day of free agency. De'Aaron Fox to the Bucks for 1 year. Other big deals. It doesn't look like anybody else there signed, at least that we can see. A ton of minimum deals here on August the 2nd. Ayton for $14 million on 1 year to Dallas. Daniels for $14 million on 1 year. I mean, a lot of these last minute signings are then we're past 8-2 by now, so a lot of guys I think that are pretty good remaining unsigned. And now we get to a part of the offseason that I always look forward to just as much as the draft. Let's see how much our team has improved in the offseason with player progression. And here it is, the player progression screen, seeing a lot of green like we wanted to. Sidney Lowry up to a 91. Once you get into those 90s, you're really considered a superstar player. Don't see a lot of these ratings go up because a lot of them are already A+, so they can't go up. But if we look at his individual ratings, I'm sure we'll see some big ups. And we see getting gold badges now, several of them. Yeah, his 3-point rating, it didn't go up on the grade screen because it was already A+, but it did go up 6. He's into the 90s there. 99 mid-range shot is crazy. 91 draw foul. Shot IQ is extremely high. Ball handling, speed with ball. His passing's a lot better. Perimeter defense is now a 99 as well, which is nuts. This guy is just absolutely insane, and I think is ready to be the number one option on a playoff caliber team. Did we build a good enough team around him to make the playoffs? So that is what we're going to be taking a look at this year. Andre Stevens +3 from 3. I was hoping for maybe a little bit more in the 5-ish range. Draw foul went up quite a bit. Interior defense and defense in general going up pretty good. Lateral quickness does drop 1. His speed and accelerations was getting a little bit less athletic. Physical's down to an A instead of an A+, but 8 badges, 2 of which are silver. Was hoping for maybe a little bit more there too. Only gets a +3 there. Didn't get all the badges that he was mentored for either, but he does get post playmaker, which was one of them. But regardless, still a nice little improvement from Stevens. Maybe we was hoping for more, but that when we drafted him, we knew he wasn't the highest upside guy. He might already be kind of close to his cap, if we're being honest. He might not do a ton of improving. Of course, these two are the rookies. They're not going to go up. Patrick Baldwin goes up 3 after winning Surprise Player of the Year. Still only has the 3 badges, but 2 of them are gold now, which is pretty good for sure. Just a better offensive player in general. Hasn't done a ton of improving on the defense, which I think would help him increase his role and maybe start if he was a better defender. So I think Moody's still going to have the edge there just because he is a better starter. Gets something, improves. His 2 badges are now both silver. I don't think they were both silver prior to last season, so that's good for him. AC Stevens goes up 1. Still 7 badges. 4 of them are now silver though. Wilson Fisher, slight upgrade here, but now has some silver badges to him. Christian Davidson up 5, and his 3-point goes from B- to A. He gets 2 badges, Agent 3 and guard up, +7 from his jump shooting, both mid-range and 3. Both are now A. Layup, so his scoring went way up. Draw foul is up, but he's a terrible free throw shooter. How much did that increase? It's up to 66 now. Defense got a bit better, which you like to see. Just going to be a much better player. I think much more consistent. He was good for us in the spotlight games. Hopefully this helps him a lot in the simulation as well. And then Sam Hudson here goes up. He also goes from B- 3-point to A. He has 9 badges now. Wow, and he did get the badges that we had him mentored for. Hudson versus Wilson Fisher is a real debate now. Very different players. But now they both have 9 badges. They're similar in overalls. Watching these two compete in the Summer League just to see who will start the season as backup point guard will be fun to see. And of course, we lost a lot of our future flexibility this offseason, but I think whoever loses out on that backup point guard spot will have some value to other teams, and we can maybe recoup a little bit back. So I'm not super worried about it in the end. Sidney Lowry once again projects to play small forward for us. He's been doing it for each of his first 3 seasons now. with this one, so we're just going to make that move official over to small forward. And we've got ourselves a nice little 10-man rotation. I think pretty much every position is already sorted out except for backup point guard. That is the one battle that we will see in Summer League. Let's go ahead and hop into those Summer League stats now. Here is a look at how the squad performed in Summer League in 7 games. We ended up making a pretty deep run in the postseason. Malachi Pope, 19 points. 2.5 rebounds, 6 assists, over a steal as well. Just under that 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Shot 53% from the field. Sam Hudson was really good scoring as well. 18 points, 3 and 3 on 60% shooting and 51% from 3. Same as Pope. Davidson put in 15 points a game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal on over 50% shooting, 41% from 3. Mullins, 14.5 points, 12.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, a little over a block on 51% shooting, and 40% from 3. AC Stevens, in his 3rd Summer League now, 14.5 points, 9 rebounds. Didn't do much in terms of blocking and stealing here, but shot 63%. Ernest Augustine had 7 points per game here, just under 7 rebounds, 2 assists as well. Shot under 50%, one of the few guys to do so, but 47 is still pretty good. 25% from 3. And then Wilson Fisher here, just 4.7 points per game. Did have 4 assists though, and nearly 2 steals. Shot 40%. And so I will say I watched some games, and there was one game that I accidentally quit out of when I meant to simulate to the end, and Sam Hudson was awful in that game, so that probably would have messed up his stats. But in the other games, he was awesome. Of these 7 games, I watched 3 off camera just to get a taste. And I will say Sam Hudson shoots a lot. And when it's going good, it'll go good. But when it's going bad, it is really bad. But I think this Summer League has earned him, at least to start the year, the backup point guard slot over Fisher. And really overall, this Summer League has helped improve my hype. I think, the 2 top 5 picks, Pope 19 and 6, and then Mullins, 15 and 13, just under. Both shooting over 50%. That's some stuff to get excited about, and they're 2 very welcome additions to the starting lineup for next season. We'll finish up the Summer League here, and that'll pretty much do it for the rest of this offseason. We see that Los Angeles is going to hold the All-Star game, and 2K Hoop Summit, I mean, we could see who had good games, but I don't think it helps determine what a class is all that much. And that's going to do it for the offseason. We have an opening night game against Sacramento. Let's just take a look at them quickly, see who we're going against. Kyrie joined that team. Kyrie is impossible to stop in 2K, so that's going to be fun. John Collins, Gus Miles, we'll see him for the first time in the series. Somebody that I really liked in that draft, up to 79 overall, 6 badges. So should be a good game. Regardless, that is it for this off-season episode of our draft-only franchise with the Nashville Sound. Really productive off-season, and I think one that's going to propel us forward in our rebuild. We'll be starting year 4 soon, and until then, sound up.